April 27th, 2025, the New York Giants draft class is complete. It is Talking Giants brought to you by SeatGeek. I'm Justin Penik here with my friend Weis, NYG Daily, and what a weekend. That was kind of cool. That was kind of fun. Weis, how you doing, man? Thanks for joining me. Cool draft class.
Very cool draft class. I think it was a very fun weekend. Thought the Giants, showed that they're trying to establish an identity, and it's an identity that we're very familiar with as fans. If you look at our history, I think for the first time, we kind of talked about it before we got started. I think first time we kind of see the vision, or we kind of see sort of the light at the end of the tunnel of what they're trying to be. I mentioned this before, but every year, we see players that we like that the Giants draft. We see guys that we like that the Giants draft. But in this particular draft, I think the one thing we saw what they're trying to become, right? And that's the most important thing here as we move forward. So drafted some good players. I thought they got better. You don't have to like every single one, but you kind of see what they're building. And every single pick, I think, sort of has a purpose. And I think that was the most important thing to come out of this draft, was that the Giants are establishing an identity that will ultimately help them be competitive and win games.
Yeah, and I love how the fan base has and even like the beat reporters and analysts, whatever, everybody has rallied around that word in identity. And I'm going to add another part to it. An attitude centered around toughness, because that's what I think the identity is. Because we talked night one, where it's like, all right, Abdul Carter's going to give the defense an identity, and then Darius Alexander's the next pick at 65, traded away 34. Well, technically, the next pick on defense, I should say. At 65, you always forget that Jaxson Dart's thrown in there too. Didn't have pick 34, so then you see Abdul Carter and Darius Alexander after Friday night, and you're like, wow, the identity that's being formed on defense. But I really want to expand upon that on offense, and why I'm kind of excited about that too. Because forget on the field for a second, Weis. I think I even like the personalities that they have off the field as well, and how that could translate to what they do on the field at first glance. Abdul Carter is calling the greatest football player of all time, asking for his number. Welcome to the New York Football Giants, which made some fans want to, take out the pitchforks, but still, like, Abdul Carter I kind of like the confidence in trying to call him up and be like, I want that number, because I want to put that expectation on myself. Jaxson Dart's a psychopath who has a chronic problem with sliding and avoiding contact. Darius Alexander's talking about taking away opponents' will to play. Cam Skattebo runs in the polls for fun, and he, I found it to be really funny. Our guy Ryan tweeted this out, leaked. Brian Daboll confirms the first play call he'll call for the Giants, and it's a screenshot of a Madden play called Zone Weak, but it's actually called Run Through a Motherfucker's Face. I mean, that's who Cam Skattebo is. And then Marcus Mbow plays like a madman, and there's a literally 3.5-minute compilation of him putting people on his ass. And then you have Thomas Fidone, who's a tattoo artist who just tats himself for fun and for shits and gigs. So overall, like, hey, we'll talk about who these guys are on the field, or who they are on the field, and who they are as players. But just looking at their attitudes and their personalities, and even Jaxson Dart shows some emotion on the sideline, which no Giants quarterback has ever really done that. I like who these guys are off the field, because I feel like it translates. You watch them on the field, and I feel like that translates their personalities, their attitudes, and it's all centered around toughness. And that is the theme of this Giants draft class, and I think that's their identity.
Correct. Yeah, you sort of look at it like, I sort of compare it to any kind of type of food you want to eat. I think the Giants add some seasoning to their food.
Yeah.
Because you need that. I think you need, when you're building a championship locker room, and you can look at Super Bowl teams throughout the years, you need guys that are edgy. You need guys that are strong personalities. You need that confidence. It can't just be, everyone is the same. You need certain guys that are willing to do, be on the edge, do the dirty work. That's important to a championship team. And you talked about the guys you brought up. I mean, starting at the top with Abdul Carter. I mean, you can see how he's oozing with confidence. And I think the Giants need that. But at the same time, it's not just the confidence, it's the fact that they, like, so many times over the course of the last like 5, 6, 7, 8 years, the Giants have been bullied around. Like, while they were losing games, they were being bullied. And I'm not just talking about the line of scrimmage, but like before the whistle, after the whistle. Like, there was no pushback ever from the Giants. You never saw that, especially this past year, right? You saw it a little bit in the Odell era, but that, a wide receiver pushing, like, you need those big dudes that can push back, right? And I think they finally have some of those guys. And that will go a long way. I know people, ultimately, this is a result-oriented business, and the Giants still have a lot of work to do to be competitive and to be a Super Bowl team. To be a Super Bowl team, I think they can be competitive, but they needed dogs. They needed people that had that dog mentality, and I think they finally got it. I think Malik Neighbors is a dog. I think he's willing to scrap when he has to. Obviously, you don't want that edginess to cost you during games with penalties and stuff. But if you can be a disciplined dog and you have that dog mentality, I think it goes a long way, man, because the mental part of this game is very, very important. When you're constantly first losing and secondly getting pushed around like the Giants have been, it takes a toll on your locker room. But you insert the type of guys that they insert in their locker room this past weekend, I think it is a culture-shifting draft is how I would describe it for the Giants.
Yeah, and when they eventually get on the field, and I love that even, hey, the expectation for Jaxson Dart is you're not going to see the field hopefully for an entire year. We'll talk about that a little bit. Same thing with Marcus Mbow. You may not see the field for a year. I kind of hope he doesn't. He's a wild player. I think he's got shit to work on. Cam Skattebo, there's a crowded running back room with Devin Singletary, Tyrone Tracy. And then, after Devin Singletary's gone after this year, will Skattebo be the one to kind of take over? So I like that even if they lose right away, right? Like, let's walk into that scenario. If they lose right away, Joe Shea and Brian Daboll, their futures are still up in the air. I still like that this draft class hopefully will not be beat up by the losing right away, like some of the other draft classes have, like some of these other teams had, like some of these other leaders have had. Like, I think Darius Slayton, for example, I think he's a good leader. I think he's a necessary leader. But I also think, I think he's been beat up by losing. Really, there's even part of it where sometimes I think he may be okay with losing. Does he want to? No. But sometimes I feel like there's just been so much damn losing where sometimes these guys are just like, all right, this is just what we do around here. So I like this draft class. They got to go out on the field and, the Giants, like that's what's next. I think as fans, there's nothing wrong to talk about this. There's nothing wrong to get excited about the theme of this draft class, identity and attitude. I don't think there's anything wrong because, we still have all these months to go and get excited about it. It's the definition of fandom is to get excited. But now what's next for them is Brian Daboll and Joe Shane's Giants. They have to show progress. And the way that you show progress is winning games, or you score a shit ton of points. But really, if they score more points and like the expectations that's now on this defense, they should win more football games, Weis. And I feel like that is the next thing. How are you going to translate? How can you translate this excitement that we feel right now over these last two draft classes, over improving the quarterback room? It goes out. You got to progress in winning football games has to be shown. That's what's next, man.
Yeah, I go to a year ago today where they were, what our thought process was on the roster. And I didn't think that this roster was good enough to compete or be competitive in a sense.
Yeah.
1 year later, given what we saw from the 2024 draft class, I want to preface by saying that I think there's still a lot to prove with that draft class. I think in order to deem it a good class, we need more consistency and we need to see some of the guys take another step forward. But when you factor in how good it looked last year, the draft class, and then you factor in what we think this draft class brings to the table, on top of the fact that, hey, remember, they signed Paulson Adebo and Javon Holland this offseason too. And then you're getting Andrew Thomas healthy, Dexter Lawrence healthy. You sign those guys on the defensive line. I think that goes a long way in being competitive. And like you said, it is a result-oriented business. And it's tough to justify keeping a coach when he has 3 straight losing seasons, and not just losing seasons where you're finishing below 500, but you're winning only 5, 6 games, 3 games, whatever. But And I think this is where we are transitioning to. I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself, but Brian Daboll, right?
Yep.
Where are we with Brian Daboll? I was particularly stunned at, and this is crazy because I feel like this is why Brian Daboll was ultimately hired to be the Giants head coach. I was particularly stunned at this point of Brian Daboll's coaching career with the Giants that he had that much pull with the quarterback draft, with who they drafted at quarterback.
Especially when we very much got the sense that Joe Schoen maybe saved his job on the pitch of Shedeur Sanders.
Exactly. And to me, that, like, when I saw that and the reports started to come out, and then ultimately they took the guy that Brian Daboll wanted, like, you've already made your bet with Brian Daboll by letting him go get this quarterback. And I know they ultimately traded pick 34 and a 99, and I think another third to get Jaxson Dart, and they're calling him a first round pick, but they allowed Daboll to pick his guy. That's the ultimate come out, right? Is that they let Daboll pick his guy. They have to let now Brian Daboll execute whatever plan he has for it. Now, that doesn't mean you give Brian Daboll an extension or, you let him coach 3 years. No. I think you now have to be, ultimately, to me, this is a reset button for Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen. And that reset button is not, we'll see after 2025. I think you have to give them 2026 as well. And I know, look, it's like, how can you justify it if they're not scoring points and they're not winning games? And it is hard to justify. But ultimately, you go back to the fact of, hey, they just let Brian Daboll quarterback this entire quarterback search, and he picked his guy. He has a plan for him. He hinted sort of at the plan during that press conference yesterday, where he talked about the phases of Jaxson Dart's development, when he'll see the field, how maybe they'll throw him in during training camp practice or something like that.
Well, they're going to.
Yeah, they will. And so I think regardless what happened the first 3 years, I think you have to come into this situation and saying, our plan is Brian Daboll's here 2025 and 2026, and then we'll see. So it's tough, I know, but I'm predicating all that on what just happened this past weekend.
Yes. And I think that last sentence is the most important thing.
Because you know what I'm scared of, Justin? Do you know what I'm really, really scared of? I am scared of John Mara at the end of next year, or after he fires this regime and hires a new regime, starts putting Jaxson Dart into the equation of who they hire. Kind of similar to how, hey, we did everything to screw this kid up, rather than, hey, I'm going to let this new regime do it. I don't want Jaxson.
It's just like firing Jerry Reese and then bringing in Dave Gettleman because you're being sold that Eli Manning still has stuff left in the tank.
Exactly. If I'm going to find out if Jaxson Dart's a franchise quarterback, I want to let the guy that just drafted him help me get to that answer.
And the only thing that I'll say with that is, again, I think that the last sentence that you said about it's me saying this and it's us thinking this in the month of April, right when it's fresh that the Giants draft Jaxson Dart, and we see that Brian Daboll is really going out of his way. I have never heard Brian Daboll. He's been the coach of the Giants. This is going on year 4. I have never heard Brian Daboll be so willing to explain or speak for a minute and a half and give like awesome explanations and talk about like a process and why things are happening the way that they are. Like Daboll has been very like, and he also like unprompted too, by the way. That was really noted. I really noted that, his presser after night 1, where Joe Schoen talked about Dart and how they're going to bring him along. And then Daboll like expanded upon that point unprompted, where he's never done that before. So I think saying that now, I think it's a lot easier to say it now, but when we get to December and January, and if we're at a point where we're staring down 4-13 in the face again, the fan base, I think, is going to be so angry that there is no way that we are going to have the logic and the reasoning of, Brian Daboll has a plan for Jaxson Dart to kind of bring him along. We should see. And I also think if we're 4-13, I think Jaxson Dart is going to be in there.
Yes.
Like the pressure will mount to see Jaxson Dart and see what he's got. If it is that bad, if it is 2023, 2024 bad, we will see Jaxson Dart at some point. So that's the important thing to note too, where I think patience now, we like where things are at right now. So I think patience is, it's always a lot easier to be patient in the offseason. But then when you get down to it, we're going to be really pissed that we lost 13 games, if that is the case. And I hopefully don't think it will be the case, Weis.
Well, here's the thing that you bring up a good point. Right now, process and plan, those are all great words and great things to hear. When the results start to come into play and you start 1-4 or you start 0-3 and you're struggling to score points, all of a sudden plans change, especially when you're in your 4th year of coaching and you're coming off 3 straight losing seasons. Or 2 straight losing seasons. Now it becomes, hey man, like you got to get into job preservation mode. You pick this guy. We got to see development on the fly, where it's like, now, okay, we know you're not going to win games, but you want to save your job. We got to see Jaxson Dart progress throughout the season. He's got to play. But right now, I'm with you. Like, I think their roster is built to compete. I think Russell Wilson is a significant upgrade to what they had last year. I know he wasn't particularly good at the end of last year, but I think his strengths to go along with what Brian Daboll wants to do offensively, I think they'll be able to push the ball down the field and score points. And obviously their defense we expect it to be, I expect it to be one of the best in the league. I mean, look at what they've done. They have a $30 million pass rusher in Brian Burns. They went out and drafted Abdul Carter. Oh, by the way, remember Kayvon Thibodeau was a top 5 pick as well. Yep. They spent all that money on the secondary. They drafted all those guys in the secondary. They have Bobby Okereke. I mean, they have put so much resources into the defense where the expectation should not be, hey, we expect – no, this defense has to be the strength of the team. Yep. And if they are as good as what they are on paper, I mean, it's hard to imagine this team not competing in games. That's my whole thing.
The 2 things that will bring them down, and I do want to get to actually the draft class and things like that. The 2 things that will inevitably bring them down. They did not severely upgrade the offensive line all that much. However, it was playing well when Andrew Thomas was healthy. But still, like I'm going to go into this year, and a big talking point that I'm going to have this summer, spoiler alert, you're going to hear me repeat this over and over again this summer. Andrew Thomas is still, and once again, the most important player on the team. Yes. I think the season, even 2023 fucks up his hamstring the first drive of the game. But even look at 2024, where, the Giants are, competent offensively. They're moving the ball. Their points per drive were not very good, but their yards per drive was like top 10 in the league. And it was one of the, they just got to finish, and they were very bad in the red zone, as we all know last year. And then Andrew Thomas gets hurt, and then boom, it's just over. It's just over. Andrew Thomas is the most important player on the Giants. And defensively, I don't know how much have they really improved the run defense. Darius Alexander, I think, in the long run is really going to improve the run defense. I don't want to put the world of expectations on Darius Alexander to come in here and be that sole number 2. They didn't add any more linebackers. They didn't add any more interior defensive linemen that move a needle for me, I should say, that really move a needle. I think the interior defensive linemen are okay. They're good. They're good depth. I think the secondary, you're still going to have Banks out there. Nubin's good. Phillips is good. Adebo's going to be better than Deontay Banks, and Cordell Flott is your 2 main guys as run defense in the secondary. So that's the only thing where I think run defense and offensive line, I think, are the 2 things that could hold this team back, where we're looking back in December and January being like, damn, those were issues last year, and they still didn't fully address it this year. But still, I'm excited for where the defense is at. I'm excited where the offense is at. I'm excited the direction that they're going. We knew that they weren't going to fix everything heading into this offseason.
No. We'll say this, though, one thing about their defense. Javon Holland is not getting enough attention. He got it the first day he signed with the Giants, but we might look back on this in December and be like, damn, we didn't talk about this guy enough.
Yeah.
His leadership, his role with this team, the plays he'll make. So I'm very much excited about what Holland can bring to the table.
Yeah. And I hate to I hate to be so excited about to watch this football team.
Yeah, I know it's
I
crazy.
kind of
Right?
hate it. I kind of hate how excited I am, but it's true. All right, so we're going to talk about actually this Giants draft class now. Get into some of these players. We'll start off with night one, but first I want to talk to you about American Crew. They were with us for the entire draft weekend. They were with us for the night one stream. And today's episode is brought to you by American Crew. Just like you need the right gear in football, you need the right gear for your hair. That's my Zohan impression. We have teamed up with American Crew, the champions of men's grooming, to help you style like a pro. For those looking for robust control without the shine, how about the Fiber Puck? It's your MVP. It holds like no other, perfect for a post-game day or any high-intensity day for that matter. The Forming Cream Puck gives you the freedom to remodel your hair throughout the day, flexible, reliable. It's the utility player you can always count on. Grab your style essential and ensure your hair always scores high no matter the play, whether you're fielding through tough questions or tackling a busy schedule. American Crew has you covered. Score your own grooming goals and grab these on Amazon. Style like a pro, look like a champ. Thank you to American Crew. Gave me a nice little haircut last week too. I love their products. They make me look great. They even smell good too. They make me feel like I am ready to go, and they style me like a pro. Thank you to American Crew. Weis, I want to read off who the Giants drafted, obviously, and I also want to read off where they were ranked on the media consensus board and where they were taken, because I think a big theme of this draft class when it comes to analyzing Joe Schoen is that he got very, very good value out of almost every single pick. There's an argument to be had about Jaxson Dart, but even that's not very glaring from where he was drafted and then also where he was ranked on the consensus board. So round one, pick 3 was Abdul Carter. Ironically enough, his media consensus ranking was 3rd. Jaxson Dart was the 25th pick of the first round. He had a consensus ranking of 33. Round 3, pick 65, Darius Alexander. He had a board ranking of 51. Cam Skattebo, 4th round, pick 105. He was 91st. Marcus Mbow, 5th round, 154th pick. This is the biggest quote-unquote steal that they had in terms of where he was ranked on the consensus board. He was 65th. They got the 65th guy on the media consensus board with the 154th pick. Thomas Fidone, University of Nebraska, tight end, 7th round, pick 219. He was 194th. And then Korie Black, cornerback out of Oklahoma State, 7th round, pick 246. He was ranked 215th on the consensus board. So the only player that the Giants, quote-unquote, reached for was Jaxson Dart, who they hopefully believe will be a franchise quarterback. And I have a feeling that there always is just this tendency of quarterbacks, like take him in round 1. If you think he's your guy, take him higher. It doesn't really matter where they're ranked on the board. If you think they're your guy, take him. And that's exactly what they did. So value, good value.
Yeah, good value. I think the Marcus Mbow thing, there was some medical stuff about him, and I think that's part of the reason why he fell. Versus
Shane said there wasn't. Shane could also be lying. Shane said there wasn't, and I don't know. Like, he was there at the Senior Bowl, and he was there and he played, and he was very adamant that he wanted to be a tackle at the Senior Bowl, which we could talk about his positional fit too when we get to him. But yeah, Marcus Mbow an interesting one where like I think he fell for a reason because I think he plays a little wild and I think he's really light and I don't know how strong he is, and that's going to have to be something that he develops. But good value. I'm a big fan of that.
The Darius Alexander pick really makes me happy, not just because I like Darius Alexander as a prospect, but it seems like Andre Patterson was heavy behind getting Alexander. So I think there is a plan in place for him. And I think we know Patterson is one of the best D-line coaches in the NFL and kind of garners a lot of respect. So I'm excited about that one to see what Darius Alexander can become ultimately. But the quarterback.
Let's start with Jaxson Dart.
So I'm not a Jaxson Dart. I wasn't a Jaxson Dart fan. And I say was because at the time he wasn't a Giant. Now that he's a Giant, listen, I got to root for my guys, right?
Root for the guys in blue.
I got to root for me to be wrong. My main concern with Jaxson Dart was Jaxson Dart. The talk, I think Dan Orlovsky said it was he had the most wow throws in this NFL draft class, right, from the quarterbacks, and that's true. He does have a lot of wow throws. You see the highlights. I just think that his career is going to be, he's going to be in the NFL for a long time. I think he's just an average quarterback. And the one thing, Justin, that haunts me is that for the last 6 years, I kept trying to talk myself into thinking the quarterback that we had is more than just average, hit or miss on Sundays. You don't know what you're going to get. And I feel, I'm not going to say somewhat similar, but I feel sort of like that's where Jaxson Dart is going to end up.
Yep.
It's like you don't really know what you're going to get week to week. Now, the one hope that I'm hanging on to is, hey, Brian Daboll worked with the quarterbacks. This is why you hired him. You got to trust that. Now, obviously, Brian Daboll year 1 is different. Brian Daboll year 4, but I'm clinging to that. But listen, Dart has an arm. Dart is mobile. Dart does a lot of things that you want to see from your quarterback. Ultimately, it's about, can Brian Daboll develop this guy into something that we can look at more than just, I don't know, hit or miss. I don't know. Is this like, I want to know what we're getting from Jaxson Dart. And I think that's why I want Brian Daboll's plan to be executed. Like, let Brian Daboll do what he wants to do with this quarterback. When Brian Daboll says he's ready to play, let him play. But in terms of my opinion, I don't necessarily think highly of Dart the prospect. With that being said, I don't think they gave up a lot to go back into the first round and get him. They gave up a comp pick and they gave up a future third round pick. I don't think that that's something where you're like, oh my God, why do we do this? I also don't think this was bad process. They spent a lot of time with the quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. They spent more time than any other team. Tennessee, I think the report came out, they heavily tried to get to 1. They put in the work. And based on the work that they put in, they thought Dart was their guy. So I think you have to live with that. You got to accept that the process was a good process, regardless of what you think of the prospect. Kudos to Joe Shane for not giving up a lot to go get him. And this would have been the case for any other quarterbacks that they traded back into the first round. But if you think this guy can develop into a franchise quarterback and you got that conviction, which I think that they do based on the way they talked about it, particularly Brian Daboll, I can live with it. Let's go. Yep. Let's see what happens. I just don't want an equation where we're giving up on or we're firing Daboll after year 1, and then we're saying, oh well, we got to do what's in the best interest of Jaxson Dart versus, hey, we got to do what's in the best interest of the Giants. I don't want this Daniel Jones going through head coaches for 4 years type thing, if you know what I mean.
No, I 100% agree. I 100% agree. But in terms of Dart, just as a player, we talked way more. We talked like 50 minutes on Dart as a player on Thursday with Monty. And if Dart doesn't have the Drake May, Jaden Daniels arm, if he had those higher traits, then guess what? He would have been a top 5 pick. He would have been the selection at 3 if he had those top end traits, right? He would have been in play at 3, but he was not in play at 3. And I think there's a reason why the Giants were so aggressive in trying to get some of the other quarterbacks this offseason, and I feel like they kind of fell on Jaxson Dart, which it's not like a referendum or a bad thing. It's just where we're at. But still, I'm okay with investing in the traits that Dart does have, especially because he is going to be sitting for most of year 1. And this is why we were talking about this earlier too, for like the first 20 minutes of the show, but this is why I also like having Jameis Winston here, because even if Russ, like you said, we're in a situation where we've only won one
misses a game or two, or I'll say about injuries, like if Russ misses
even that too. Perfect. Yes. Yeah. Awesome point too. But even if we're in a situation where, whether it's due to injury or bad play, and it's way early in the season, like I don't want to see Jaxson Dart in October or early, even early November. But this is why it's great to have Jameis here too, because then it's like, all right, well, we can go to Jameis, and then when it gets to December, mid-December, early December, late December, then it's like, all right, that may be Jaxson Dart time, or it may not be. I'm hoping for it to not be the case. That would be great if Jaxson Dart can just sit and learn, develop, and everything like that. You have 2 quarterbacks that are here that are not on the team after 2026, and Russ is only here for 1 year. So let that be the case. But that's why I kind of like it right now. I like that He has this attitude. He has this spunk about him. And call whatever, Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss, it's a fake system. It's not real. Like having an average depth of target of almost 20 yards under pressure and just slinging it down the field, and teams would be able to figure out what they're doing. That's why I think that Jaxson Dart had a lot of fourth quarter collapses, is because I think teams would figure out the things that Lane Kiffin wants to accomplish. And even Jaxson Dart talked a lot on Gruden's show about, Gruden's like, tell me about the offense. And he's like, well, it's very game plan specific and it's very team specific. I think they run their core concepts, but they change it up depending on the team. And I think by the time the fourth quarter and the second half would come around, teams would just figure that out. And that's why I think the detriment of the Lane Kiffin offense, because it's not this pro style offense. It's not very real. And I think that's partially why you have the fourth quarter collapses. So I know a lot of people talk about that as a negative with Dart. That's not something that's really on my brain when it comes to how he's going to translate to the NFL, because Lane Kiffin is Lane Kiffin and he's so unique in that regard. But he's aggressive. He's going to do the things that Brian Daboll wants him to do. Even if the traits aren't Drake May, even if the traits aren't Jaden Daniels, a Caleb Williams, some of the other quarterbacks that they have really tried to trade up for and make New York Giants, this is their guy. And I could see shades of why Brian Daboll likes Jaxson Dart. And I'm with you. Like, is he my first choice? No. Would I have traded up and did this? No. But can I see the vision of why they did it? 100%. And like, I would have rather them do this than, and I know I know you had Shedeur as your QB1, but I think I like the traits of Jaxson Dart better than Shedeur Sanders in terms of his mobility, in terms of his arm, in terms of his willingness to do certain things. Traits is just traits. Doesn't make you a good quarterback. But that's where I am on that. I want to talk to you about Shedeur after maybe if we have time by the time the show's over. But you got anything else on Jaxson Dart before I want to talk about Carter too, and then we'll go through the rest of these guys.
No, I am rooting for Jaxson Dart. Like I said, the traits are what's exciting, and the unknown, Justin. First time, really in a long time, the Giants have some unknown at quarterback. Where it's like, let's see what happens. Like that's exciting to me. When you draft a young quarterback this high, that training camp is fun. Like you're trying to see what's there. So it's an exciting time, regardless how I feel about Jaxson Dart. And like I said, I'm rooting for me to be wrong on what I think Jaxson Dart will be.
Yeah. I love it, man. Let's move to Abdul Carter. Speaking of things that we love, Abdul Carter, 6'3", 250 pounds. He went to Penn State, turned 21 in January, so this is going to be his age 21 season. He was the number 1 in FBS in tackles for loss at 23.5, number 2 in pressures at 66, number 7 in sacks at 12.5. Weis, he's a generational mover. He grew up in North Philadelphia, spent time at both running back and linebacker in high school. Talk to me about Abdul Carter. We know that he's sick. Talked about him on Thursday night too, but he's sick. Give me your thoughts and tell me how excited you are.
Abdul Carter is the perfect pass rusher. He is all about football. Joe Shane mentioned that when they brought him into the meeting, just all about football.
Doing
this
flips guy, like JPP 2011, sending videos to Joe Shane.
You can see Abdul Carter wants to be great. Like the way he talks, it's one thing to have confidence. It's another thing to be confident in what you want to be. I don't know if that makes sense or not. I can explain that to you at a training camp. But I think Carter, man, it's use that word generational. And I was getting ready to cut you off. You said
generational mover.
Yeah, I like that. But the bend, the speed off the edge, the first step, a little bit of Von Miller in his game. And the crazy part about it is he's only played pass rush for 1 full year at Penn State.
1 year.
I feel like this is scratching the surface of what he can be. I think he's got to work against the run a little bit better. Yeah. But, I mean, love this guy. Absolutely love this guy. Look, said it when we talked before the draft, right? There's only a few blue chippers in this draft, and I think Abdul Carter is one of them. I think stepping in, his confidence, there's leadership that comes with that confidence, and I think the leadership will grow in year 1, and we'll see him. I think teammates will gravitate toward him. He's a high work ethic guy. He's a guy that's, like I said, all about football. I think Abdul Carter was made to be a Giant, even though he was celebrating an Eagles Super Bowl a couple months ago.
Yeah.
But I love Carter, man. Just an absolute dog. You can see it. Saw it on draft night. Very, very excited. I mean, you pulled the numbers. Everyone has watched highlights, film on him. This is the real deal. And I sort of compare him a little bit to Malik Neighbors last year, where you see the confidence right away. You see the dog right away.
He called the greatest football player of all time and asked for his number.
Yeah. Like you see, like Malik Neighbors, we saw it last year on draft night. We saw the confidence in him. We knew what we were getting. This is similar with Abdul Carter. You know what you're getting. You know what he's going to be on the football field. And I'm just so excited, man. The Giants, they have tried to go back to their roots many times, but it just feels like they were just throwing money at it or throwing these, draft picks at it. I just feel like now with Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, and Abdul Carter, Kayvon Thibodeau, adding the depth that they added, Chauncey Gold, like I just feel like it has come together, and like this is the identity of the team.
Yeah.
And the identity is oozing with confidence, oozing with dog, oozing with this toughness mentality. But we are not going to get bullied. We are going to bully you. Yep. It's not just about having good players on your defensive line that will get 8 sacks a year, right? Like Olivier Vernon. Like these are guys now that are going to bully you. They're going to sack your quarterback, and they're going to tell your quarterback that they just sacked you.
Yeah.
And that's what the Giants have been missing for years, and that's what excites me the most about this team.
Yeah, I just thought of this while you were going on. In terms of the type of leader I want Abdul Carter to be, I want him to be a lead by example guy. I don't need him to be a rah-rah guy.
Right.
I don't need him to be, he's the one that's given the speech in the locker room, the players only meeting and all that dumb shit, fun shit. I want Abdul Carter. This is how you could be different from Kayvon Thibodeau. Ready for this? Kayvon Thibodeau likes being a football player. Kayvon Thibodeau, I don't think loves football. I want Abdul Carter to love football, and I hope that he already does. Like that, this is something that I don't know. I don't know, but you got that impression from kind of day one. Kayvon Thibodeau likes being a football player. He likes being a football player in New York. I want Abdul Carter to love football, and that's where he can get to the Micah Parsons level. If you're already getting those comparisons, the way that you can get there is I honestly think Micah Parsons has gotten better. I don't think Micah Parsons has always just been this. I think Micah Parsons has continued to get better. I'm interested to see what Micah Parsons weighs. I was shocked when I saw, if you look at Micah Parsons' NFL draft and what he weighed in at the combine, 246 pounds. Abdul Carter's 250 pounds. So does Abdul Carter need to add strength? Yeah. But I'm thinking to myself, man, just off of memory, Micah Parsons is heavier than that, right? Nope. Abdul Carter's got a couple pounds on him coming out of college. You're even thinking to yourself, oh, Abdul Carter has short arms. Micah Parsons has arms that are almost 2 inches shorter than Abdul Carter. And, that you're thinking arm length and that kind of stuff, stacking and shedding. That's the stuff that really helps you in the run game. It could even help with one-arm stems when it comes to being a pass rusher as well, using your arms, using your hands. So, this isn't to say that Abdul Carter is going to be Micah Parsons, but he's getting those comparisons. Heavier coming out of college. Arms are almost 2 inches longer. The way that you're going to get there, love football. And that's what I hope Abdul Carter does. And I love that guys like Kayvon Thibodeau are here. Chauncey Golston are here. Because I don't want Abdul Carter playing 80% of the snaps, 75% of the snaps this year. I don't want that. I want Abdul Carter to go out there and play like a madman, play like a psychopath, watch JPP in 2011, be like, you see how this guy's chasing runs 40 yards down the field? He's coming from the opposite side of the field, and he's chasing runs down 40 yards down the field, and he's saving the Giants touchdowns, and he's being an X factor and being a player besides just getting QB hits, sacks, and pressures. You have that same potential to do that shit. And guess what? You make insane plays like that, you don't got to worry about getting tired. We'll take you right out. Guys will come in. Your legs will be fresh. So then you can go out there and play 120%, 110% at all times. That's what I want out of Abdul Carter out of year one. Play like a madman, show some flashes, but we got guys that will have your back. So I don't need Abdul Carter to carry the team this year in his second full year only as an edge rusher. So that's my expectations. And that's why I'm excited about him specifically for this year. Just play like a madman.
Yeah, I'm with you. I also to piggyback off what you said, I want him to grow more of an intimidating factor.
Yeah.
In him, where guys, not just in the Giants locker room, but his opponents fear him. And I ultimately, I think that if that happens, then we'll be sitting pretty. But yeah, everything you said is spot on about Carter, man. I'm excited to see what year one brings, and the fact that I want to see Shane Bowen get creative with Abdul Carter, the athlete. I want to see him being moved around more, and so.
Yeah, you want to talk about a guy in New York that has pressure on him?
Yeah,
Shane, like, hey, man, like, Joe Shane has almost indicated in some of his, the post presser press conference that he had last night, and then he sat down with Paul Dottino and John Schmelk, and he's kind of said in both times where people are trying to get at the whole identity thing, defensive identity, like you guys are trying to establish that, right? And Joe Shane has kind of walked back on that and be like, no, it kind of happened by almost a little bit of accident, because Trey Smith was franchise tagged by Kansas City, and the top guard didn't hit the market. He kept mentioning a wide receiver one didn't hit the market. I think he was just saying that as an example. I think he kind of was saying that we kind of backed into our defense, adding some really nice pieces on our defense. It may have not been our first plan, but we kind of backed into it, and it's a place that we like. So I want to talk about a guy that better show the fuck up. It's Shane Bowen. It's like, all right, dude. You have experience in the secondary now. If the excuse last year is that your secondary was horrible and you had rookies running around, and even Jason Penik was somewhat new to the safety position still, and Wink Martindale was a very unique scheme for safeties to begin with, you better put responsibility on your players now. Put responsibility on Javon Holland to man, center field. Put responsibility on Paulson Adebo to be a cornerback one, and do some fun shit. Disguise some shit. Do the stuff that we thought that you were going to do coming from Tennessee. So yeah, if you want to talk about a guy that's got pressure on him, it's certainly Shane Bowen. Weis, I'm going to talk to you about something, and then we're going to talk about Darius Alexander. And I'm excited to talk about Darius Alexander because we know him. I have to talk to you about Hims, because today's episode is sponsored by Hims. And if ED is getting you down, you need Hims to help you get your confidence. We're talking about how Abdul Carter wants to play with confidence. Here you go. Take Hims. Hims provides access to treatments that can help you stay hard and last longer so you can be ready whenever the mood strikes. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/giants. That's HIMS.com/giants for your personalized ED treatment options. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products, which are not approved by or verified or safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescription required an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. Bam. Bam, bam, bam. Darius Alexander. He is 6'4", 305 pounds from the University of Toledo. He's turning 25 this year. He's a little bit of an older guy, a little bit of an older prospect, and we're going to talk about how I have some questions when it comes to that. But he had 3.5 sacks, 7.5 tackles for loss, 5 passes defended, and 40 tackles this past year. Here are some advanced stats of Alexander. Among draft-eligible interior defensive linemen per PFF this year, he was 3rd in pass rush win rate in true pass sets, 7th in pass rush productivity in true pass sets. He was 4th in QB hits, 4th in sacks, 10th in total run stops, and 10th in average depth of tackle. Weis, I think the main thing with Alexander is he gets out of his stance really fast, and he's looking to punch and strike. I'm excited to see him use speed to power at the NFL level, both as a pass rusher and then both in his ability to play run defense as well. Heavy hands and long arms combo. He's going to combine that with the mean bull rush. His arm length was in the 77th percentile. His wingspan is in the 82nd percentile. His hand size is at the 50th percentile. So he has heavy hands, man. He's a strong player. Fast player when he gets off the ball. I think he can even get better at using his hands, even though he did it well at Toledo. Really stood out at the Senior Bowl and stood out towards the second part of this year. A little bit of a late bloomer as a prospect. Joe Shane mentioned that the Senior Bowl and how he stood out down there, specifically as a pass rusher, is one of the reasons why he kind of attracted the Giants. What do you think about Darius Alexander, interior D lineman, somebody that could play next to Dex hopefully for a long time?
Yeah, I think his hope as he develops into a 3-down player. I think he definitely has the size and the length, the arm length you said to be that. very mature guy. Had to grow up very quickly. I don't know if you know this. He has a 6-year-old son, which
Really?
that does change your life when you have kids at a very young age. And I think his maturity showed. Again, football player, guy that I think will come in and instantly be a rotational piece. And I think his role will grow as the season goes on. The most exciting thing, as I mentioned earlier, this is an Andre Patterson pick.
Yep.
And Andre Patterson has the history of developing these guys. And that's what excites me the most. I didn't watch a lot of Toledo football, but Alexander was high on my board coming out. The Senior Bowl, like you said, was big for him. But what I'm excited about is that those physical traits, the length, the size, had a great pick six play. I forgot one of those games he had during college had a pick six, but physically gifted. I think if he's able to be molded and put together the way Andre Patterson sees, the perfect complement next to Dexter Lawrence. So, and I know a lot of guys would be perfect next to Dexter Lawrence, but again, another pick that I think we won't see the impact right away.
I agree with that.
If the plan goes well, I think he could be somebody that ultimately steps in line and becomes an important part of this defensive line.
Yeah, talk about this all the time on this show, how it takes, I mean, you see it firsthand with Dexter Lawrence. It sometimes just takes a couple years for these guys to get going. It even took, like, Dalvin Tomlinson didn't even start the straight up dominant play until, like, seems like Leonard Williams arriving just unlocks something in Dalvin Tomlinson. So sometimes it just takes a certain move. Sometimes it just takes time. A draft crush that I love, that I refer to all the time, is Travis Jones out of the University of Connecticut, out of UConn. He went to the Ravens. I'm thinking to myself, oh, that's a draft L for me. Like, Travis Jones was one of my guys the year that he came out, and it was like 3 years ago. And lo and behold, I look this year for the Baltimore Ravens. You turn on a Ravens game and Travis Jones is making plays. It's like, oh, sometimes these guys take time. The only thing that I worry about is knowing that, oh, these guys take time. He's already 20. He's going to be 25 years old by the time the season starts. And he was a late bloomer at college. Like, I wanted to see Darius Alexander kind of dominate a little bit more at the University of Toledo. It's not like we're talking about this guy's coming from the SEC and it took him until age 24 to really get going. So that's the only thing with Alexander. If he didn't stand out at the Senior Bowl, though, that's where I will say, if Alexander, who had a little hype and he was invited to the Senior Bowl and maybe a top 100 player kind of heading into Mobile, Alabama, if he did not have a good Senior Bowl, then you're given the, you had good film against bad competition. But then he went down there and he dominated. He was one of the best players. I think he was actually given the best player for the American or national team. I forget which team he was on, but I think he was actually given that honor. And Dane Brugler, by the way, has stated his peak plays remind him of who? Leonard Williams. Weis. Yeah. How do you like that?
Yeah.
How do you like that? And I could see that. I kind of thought that Leonard Williams would be a kind of just like he would rumble. He would rumble and it'd be a motor. And Leonard Williams, that's how sometimes he would get some of those sacks of, being relentless, trying to just constantly using his hands. And I think Alexander can do the same thing. And another thing, shades of Leonard Williams, I actually think, and this could even be from day one, like if we're worried about Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau and Abdul Carter setting an edge on early downs, go really big. Put Darius Alexander's hand in the dirt, line him up over the tackle as like this, kind of defensive end, big defensive end. And I think Alexander can do that. And talk about a strength mismatch if you're playing a little bit of a lighter tackle. I think that could even be a role for him in the NFL right away. So I'm excited about Alexander. But those questions about why he's a late bloomer and how long will he take, as I sneeze. I muted myself so you didn't have to hear me sneeze.
Damn, I was about to say, did you just sneeze without making any noise?
Nope, I muted myself. This ain't my first rodeo. Anything else on Darius Alexander? I like him. I think he utilizes a one-arm stem. He gets extension from the lineman. I think he utilizes a swim move as well as like a complementary move. He could play a little too upright. I like Alexander, and this is a guy that I think was in consideration at pick 34. And that's the
You
fun
think
part about
so?
this. Oh yeah, he had a top 30 visit with the Giants, knowing that at least as fans, we were all talking about the theme of this draft should be defensive lineman and offensive lineman, right? Address the trenches, which I think the Giants did. Even Skattebo, I think, is going to help make the offensive line better, which we'll talk about how with yards after the contact. So this class should be like where's the strength of this class? It's in the defensive linemen, the running backs, and the offensive linemen. And I love that they came out with their first non-first round pick. They came out with the guy at 65 that I think was in consideration at pick 34. So I'm a big fan of Alexander.
Yeah. The Andre Patterson thing is what sticks out to me the most. The fact that's a Patterson guy. Yep. And I love Andre Patterson.
All right, Cam Skattebo. How about that Cam Skattebo? 5'9", 216 pounds from Arizona State. He turned 23 in February, and the New York Giants took him in round 4 with their 105th pick. Weis, he had 293 carries this year, 1,711 yards, 5.84 yards per carry, 21 touchdowns. That's a lot. 43 touchdowns in his career is crazy. 45 receptions, 605 receiving yards, 13.4 average yards per reception with 3 touchdowns as well. Had 51 career touchdowns this year. Here are some advanced stats compared to the draft eligible players at running back this year. He was 6th in yards after contact per attempt, 2nd in missed tackles forced, and number 1 was Ashton Jeanty. 98th percentile in missed tackles forced per attempt, 4th in runs of 10-plus yards, 8th in yards per attempt, 2nd in yards per route run. That receiving ability is definitely underrated. His trump card is broken tackles and contact balance. That's his trump card. The offense at Arizona State absolutely ran through him, and it's kind of cool that the Giants are investing in a player at round 4, pick 105, in a player that the offense just ran through him. If Skattebo didn't have a good game, then Arizona State didn't have a good game. 10 straight 100-yard games to end the season, did well against stronger competition, and I love his mentality as a player. I think his mentality as a player is it shows up in the contact balance and the broken tackles and the power that you see. I think the attitude that he kind of has off the field, I think he's a fiery player. There were some reports and things of him being a little bit of emotional on the sideline, but I kind of like that. I want a player that hates to suck, and Cam Skattebo certainly is that guy. What do you think of him, Weis?
Yeah, I think it personifies what the Giants' focus on this weekend was about the identity, toughness, competitor. I think he went through a lot to get to Arizona State, proved himself, especially that Peach Bowl. You talked about it. Breaks through tackles. The emphasis was the guys we draft on defense have to be able to tackle. The guys we bring in on offense got to be able to break through tackles. And I think Skattebo is that. NFL.com had a great way to compare him. He's a carnage creator, which is I love it. I mean, he is he looks for contact just to run through it. And I think he has legitimate potential to be a 3-down back with his ability to pass catch out of the backfield. Yep. I'm interested to see how he does with run blocking. Or excuse me, with pass blocking. But I definitely Skattebo is going to be a fan favorite right off the bat. I mean, really one of the more popular players in college. But coming here, I saw a comparison of Jaylen Warren and David Montgomery, which I sort of like when you think about those two kind of backs, smaller guys, run through contact. So. Perfect compliment, in my opinion, to Tyrone Tracy. I think I like what the Giants have done as they pivoted into the post-Saquon era with Tracy last year, who had 1,000 all-purpose yards. And then you factor in Skattebo. It'll be interesting to see how they break that up. But I wonder what this means for Devin Singletary now, because where does he fit into this equation? So I think Skattebo's personality is going to be great within the Giants organization. We talked about it earlier. You need sort of those edgy guys that are people that are going to be, they are not going to be shy of showing their competitive fire and how it affects them. So you talked about all the stuff he does well, running through tackles. One concern I have is the top end speed when he gets to the next level. Can he turn those runs that are, 7-8 yards into 18-19 yards? That's going to be the thing that sticks out for me. I don't think he ran well. And did he run at the combine? I don't remember if he ran at the combine, but he didn't have a good 40 speed. So the top end speed is what's a little bit concerning to me. But everything else, I mean, he is going to be a fan favorite really early on, and exciting player. I remember watching that Peach Bowl, thinking, man, this guy is Skattebo. This is a cool player. And now he's a Giant. So happy for it. They did a lot of work on the running backs, which makes me wonder if they don't go and get, let's say Dart gets taken, right?
Yeah.
How high would they have taken one of these backs? One of those Ohio State backs, because they did a lot of work on him. So,
you mean? Oh, I wonder if like an option at 34.
Yeah, that was my thing, because they did a lot of work on these backs, and I think if they had to trade some of those picks, I thought they would have taken a running back even higher.
And I like why I liked this class to begin with. Skattebo, I don't know how Damian Martinez was. What was he, a 7th round, 6th round pick? Damian Martinez, like Skattebo was better than Damian Martinez, but I kind of viewed them similarly. Even Caleb Johnson.
You think Martinez could be a 3-down back? That was the big knock on him.
Three down, probably not. That he's not going to catch the ball well. I can't remember on the top of my head if I wrote down how he was as a pass blocker. But I mean, he has the strength, he has the size to be like all these guys have the size to be good pass blockers. You know, I think if you're not, if you have, you know, if you're 220, 230 pounds, you know, then you have a shot to be a good pass blocker. But so why I like this class, you know, Caleb Johnson was another one. Even Judkins was. He's close to 220 as well, 215. That's like, I feel like that's decent size. It's good size. And you watch the NFL this year, and like, who were some of the running backs that stood out? Like David Montgomery stood out, you know, have just mean, nasty runs. The Lions are super fun to watch. James Conner of the Arizona Cardinals, the last 2 years, they've had like one of the more efficient rushing attacks in the NFL. And you know, sure, you can get the James Cooks of the world, which I really like James Cook a couple years ago. I would have been fine with the Giants using a 3rd-round pick, and I think they were very interested in him. And lo and behold, Buffalo takes him, and that's where Joe Schoen came from. Where Joe Schoen did his draft prep was with Buffalo that year. So you can have the James Cooks of the world that have the, you know, the breakaway rate and the long speed and the explosive play potential. And I still rest upon that, the whole notion that one of the best stats, how you translate college success to NFL success, is explosive play rate for running backs. I still really think that. But I think as the years have gone on, I've gotten way more into contact balance, yards after contact, and broken tackles, but specifically yards after contact. You know, can you fall forward for an additional 2-3? You know, can you break a tackle and then keep that play going? That instead of just the long speed as being the main thing that translates from the college level to the pro level. So that's why I liked a lot of these guys. And I think besides Ashton Genty and maybe even Maureen Hampton, I think Skattebo, I mean, he's better in those numbers after contact and broken tackles. He's better than Hampton in that regard, in terms of contact balance. That's why I like Skattebo. And I think that's where he can help out an offensive line, where it's not just offensive linemen that you're banking on them in yards before contact. Skattebo can help you out because he's going to give you extra yards and he's going to give you extra value after he gets contacted too. Where even if he's not going to get the 15, 20 plus yard runs where it's all these breakaway runs, the idea of a running game in the NFL, in my opinion, is to stay efficient and to stay on schedule. And I think Skattebo is going to help you do that.
Yeah, I don't think you'll see negative yards with Skattebo. He's always going to have his head forward trying to get something. So love the fact that he looks for contact, runs through guys. So exciting, man. I can't wait for training camp with some of these young players that they got.
And we are live streaming this episode. My guy Nick said some scouts said he reminds him of Bradshaw. I kind of hope he wears 44 for that exact reason.
That'll be dope. He did wear 4 in college, so maybe he adds
an extra 4.
Yeah.
I mean, knowing the Giants, 4 is probably retired. Like every single digit number is retired besides 1, 2, 8.
I think I saw a list. I think they only have 1 single digit number left or something like that, or 2. I think
what number is Dart's going to be?
12 or 2. Deontay Banks going back to 25.
Is
That was
Jameis
something.
2 right now? But I mean, that's all. I mean, they could change that. Nothing's official.
Isn't no? I know Banks is 2. I think Jameis is.
Oh no, Banks is 2. You're right.
Jameis is like 19. I think.
Yeah,
something like that.
Something like that. That's a bad number.
I hate these New Jersey numbers. I hate to see receivers wearing 20s.
Darius Slayton. Why did Darius Slayton need to change? Anyway, that's a June rant I need to go on. But it's because I hate the Darius Slayton number change. That's exactly why it's going to work.
That's why at training camp I need to have my new number. You know, the sheet that I always carry around.
Yeah,
remember that? Yeah, I need to bring that to training camp again.
Let's see. Any other notes that I have? Cam Skattebo. This is from Dan Schneier. The episode that he was on, he went on. Dan Schneier is a big Cam Skattebo guy. Highest career avoided tackle rate versus power 4 defenses among running backs drafted since 2017. That's not just this year. It's running back since 2017. Highest career avoided tackle rate versus power 4 defenses. I also wanted to look into because, I like his attitude and I like his energy. I like his spunk, but also I wanted to look into, why could some people maybe see that as a negative? And I'm going to tell you why I think it actually fits perfect with Brian Daboll. Pro Football Network draft profile on Cam Skattebo. This is from that quote. While energetic and passionate, Skattebo's demeanor can come off as volatile, and traditionalist coaches who prize a strict business attitude may not like it. Okay.
Well, Brian Daboll is not a traditionalist.
Brian Daboll runs a country club. And if anything, Brian Daboll is the one who's flipping out on the sideline. So
I would love to see Brian Daboll flip out on Cam Skattebo and the Cam Skattebo turn around and flip out on Brian Daboll. I feel like there'd be two guys looking in the mirror at each other.
The Draft Network also described him as a fiery competitor who wears his heart on his sleeve and mentioned that NFL interviews would be important because his loose approach isn't for everybody. You want to know who else is loose and runs a loose practice? And sometimes, and I saw that too, in some research that I was doing too about, can maybe be a little bit loose in practice. Brian Daboll, it's fucking Brian Dable's MO. So
you remember?
I'm not worried about that.
2 years ago at training camp, it was like you said, like a country club. Remember that?
Well, they got a little bit more intense last year.
Yeah,
and
right.
They kicked the shit out of the Lions for a day, and we're like, holy shit. So I still want there to be an intensity with practice. This is a very, very young team. I think this is the second or third top 5 youngest team in the NFL. I still think the Packers have had the youngest team in the NFL for a long time. When are they not going to be the youngest team? But there's young guys. There's no Darren Waller that you need to have, maintenance with, or any of these older guys. You have everybody that's younger than 30. Let's roll. It's practice.
Outside of Dex and some of those older depth veteran guys.
Dex doesn't need to show up a day in training camp.
I think at this point you got to give AT some maintenance days too, right?
100%.
Yeah.
So, you know that they're going to be fine, and give them their days. If anything, I would like to. If anything, I want to see the swing tackle work out and get better.
Russ could get some maintenance days too. That could happen.
Maybe.
Too,
well, no. None of these guys know the offense. It's crazy. We were here in the interviews. We were here. Brian Daboll and Joe Shane were talking about how Tommy DeVito is the guy that's been in the system for a couple years. I'm like, oh God.
Yeah, Tommy DeVito.
Tommy DeVito's our new Davis Webb. Crazy. Oh, gosh, I don't have the pick that he was. Weis, let me know. Maybe you can look this up really quick. I'm going to move on to Marcus Mbow because he's 6'4".
154.
Thank you. 6'4", 302 pounds from the University of Purdue, age 22. What pick was he?
154.
154, round 5 for the New York Football Giants. A guy that was 68th on the consensus board, and Dane Brugler had him ranked 84th, and the Giants got him where, Weis?
Pick 154.
Say it one more time. 18 starts at right tackle. He had 14 at right guard. He has started at right tackle since 2023. I will say this quickly. I did watch a game of him at guard. I watched against Wisconsin. I saw some nice plays against Keanu Benton. I also saw some not nice plays. Marcus Mbow has gotten better since 2022, which is a good thing, which makes me kind of think I don't know what his position is going to be right now. I actually think that he maybe can be a decent tackle. He did have a top 30 visit with the Giants. The main thing with Mbow is he plays like a wild man. He's aggressive. He's looking to seek and destroy, but it is wild. Weis, it kind of reminds me when like a newborn animal that could run is born, like a horse or a deer or an antelope. You know how they can like run when they're born, but they don't know how? That's what it reminds me watching Marcus Mbow play football. The power and play strength is a huge concern, just like with newborn animals. Really good athlete and mover, though. Strike power, hand placement, sometimes can go a little bit of outside, but I like his hands. His hand technique is pretty good. Varies his punch, too, and how he places his hands to keep defenders guessing on what they're going to do. The Notre Dame game just has a shit ton of players on the ground. He's looking to finish Mortal Kombat. Understands angles and where he needs to place his hat in the run game. I think this is going to be important for him with his lack of size and his lack of strength. Like he knows how to turn his body and utilize angles rather than just straight up power. He was also a basketball player for most of his life, and he was new to football late in high school. So, Weis, the main thing that people are talking about now is where is he going to play? Like he has crazy athleticism, but it's the strength that's a major question mark. I mean, there are a lot of people think that he can translate to center. He's been practicing at basically all positions through this draft process. He's been practicing snapping the ball. He's been practicing at guard. He's been a tackle the last 2 years at Purdue. Joe Schoen said that they're going to first give him a shot at tackle through the spring and probably the summer. And then I think what is going to happen, knowing how the Giants have operated things in the past with guys with positional flexibility, maybe a week into camp, maybe 2 weeks into camp, that's when we're going to see Marcus Mbow take some snaps, whether it be at center or guard. But I think I'd like him possibly sticking at tackle because I just have major questions on his play strength. I just don't know if he can hold up against guys that are going to be going across from him that are 340 pounds. Like, welcome to the NFL. Here's Jordan Davis. He has the athleticism and the movement to get lower than them. Even though he does even play a little bit high at tackle. Like, I think this is a really good spot for Mbow to go. I think this is a really good spot. Pick what pick wise?
154.
154. Like, I know he was in play at 65. I know he was even in play at, even where Cam Skattebo went. But I think this is a really good spot to take a chance on a project offensive lineman. And I do view Marcus Mbow as that, despite his consensus ranking being so much higher.
Yeah, you talk about the movement. That's one of the big reasons why I think his future is at tackle. I don't think he has the strength for guard yet. But he has a mentality that I love. I think he talked about how he wants to demoralize people. I absolutely love a quote like that.
Yeah.
I feel like if there's going to be any fights this summer, I think Marcus Mbow is going to be in the middle of that. But sort of reminds me a little bit of Jermaine Illuminor too. And I think that's a perfect mentor for him. Does play wild. I think there was like 3-4 clips of him just slapping the
club. I forgot to mention the club. The club is awesome. See, that's the type of stuff that you probably can't do that at guard. No. So like a lot of the stuff like we're seeing James Foster, by the way, No Flags film has become one of my favorite. He had a draft guide that was awesome that used I used their athletic testing and percentiles of so much. So go give him a follow. No Flags film. Tell him I sent you. And like he put 3.5 minutes, a 3.5-minute compilation of Marcus Mbow putting people on their ass. And I think that was just from this year. 3.5 minutes.
I don't think that's by mistake either. I think there is a lot to love about this guy. And I keep going back to this, Justin. It's crazy because I feel like we've done this every pick. It's that mentality that these guys have that they drafted and what they want to be. And it's not just they talk about it. They're about it. We see it with Skattebo on the field. We see it with Carter, right? We even see it with Jaxson Dart and how he plays with that dog mentality.
Yeah.
Same thing with Marcus Mbow. What is it, a 3-4 minute clip of him putting people on his ass?
Yeah.
And not in in the Big Ten, right? Big Ten has produced some really good edge rushers.
And Purdue was a journey to watch.
Exactly. Miserable. Right. So they were a bad team, but Marcus Mbow was still playing at a level that the losing didn't get to him. So I think his future is at tackle. When I look at him, his build, I think he is a tackle. I have a tough time seeing him at guard. I know there's talk about center, but I think the first year of him being with Illuminor, seeing if he can develop into that right tackle that the Giants want him to be. What this means, I think, for Evan Neal is you better learn guard, buddy, because I think that's where Evan
Yeah,
Neal's
they didn't pick
future
up his
is.
fifth-year option, by the way.
Yeah, surprising, right? But what I'm going to be watching for this summer is, okay, how often do we see him play?
Mm-hmm.
How is his technique? And where are we with his development? Because we see the clips of him putting people on his ass, just like we see the wild throws of Jaxson Dart. But is there consistency to his game?
Yeah.
And if there is a consistency to his game, Justin, I think he could be not an immediate impact player because I don't think he's going to start right away, but he can be somebody, hey, Jermaine Illuminor out a couple weeks, but Marcus Mbow will step in and start. Something like that. You know what I mean? And that's what I want to see. Is there consistency to Marcus's game in year one? And if there is, okay, this guy might be higher on the depth chart in year one than we like to see. But I'm with you. I think he's a right tackle. I don't think he's a guard.
Yeah. I don't know where he's going to go yet. I mean, I have.
Oh, okay. I see right tackle.
I don't know. But I don't think it's not a nothing burger for Joe Schoen just to say that we're going to start him at right tackle. And they're saying that now. Like usually they're like, oh, we'll see. We have a plan, we have a process. We're in stage one of our fucking, that's what Brian Daboll says all the time. No,
phase one.
Phase one, excuse me. Thank you for getting me right. I thought it was pretty noteworthy, but
I think the reason he fell is there's some medical flags with him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shane didn't indicate anything. I'm wondering why. Like that is the main, 65 consensus support, 84 for Brugler. Like this is that's a pretty big fall, especially when there was a lot of offensive linemen taken early.
Yep.
And then I feel like day 2, there was a huge gap of offensive linemen just not being taken. And Bo was one of those guys that, you're kind of waiting for him to be picked. And, even the Giants said he was that high on our board. I think they said that they were considering either Bo or
Skattebo, yeah, or Bo.
Scat or Bo. And then they wound up getting both. Why not both? It's like that taco commercial.
I was surprised that when Green Bay took a tackle in the second round, I think they took the NC State tackle, Anthony Belton, I think that's what his name is. I thought they were going to take Marcus Mbow because there's similarities in their game between Zach Tom and Marcus Mbow. So I was surprised that first of all Belton went that high, and when the Packers did take a tackle, it wasn't Marcus Mbow because he looked a lot. This game looks like the exact time. But right tackle, another guy I'm excited to watch this summer. Interested to see if he can create himself a role in year one.
All right, Weis, I got one more thing to talk to you.
All right.
And it's Huel before we finish off the 2 7th-round picks. If you're constantly on the move or just tired of skipping meals, Huel has you covered. Spelled Huel, and their Black Edition ready to drink is a total game changer. It's a complete meal in one bottle with 35 grams of protein, 27 vitamins and minerals, high fiber, and low sugar. That's a nice combo. So you could feel full, focused, and ready for your day. And right now, all new customers get 15% off plus a free gift at Huel.com when you use our code GIANTS. Don't miss out today. Try it today. My mornings are chaotic. I have sleep apnea. It's tough for me to get up, and I don't have a lot of energy. And I'm out the door in minutes because it takes me a long time to sometimes get ready. I don't have time to whip up a balanced meal, but which is where Huel Black Edition comes up clutch. It keeps me fuel energized and focused all day. Start saving time and money without compromising your nutrition today with this exclusive offer for new customers of 15% off plus a free gift using our exclusive code GIANTS at Huel.com. That's 15% plus a free gift for new customers using the exclusive code GIANTS at Huel.com. Please see our description for the terms and conditions. Skip the stress, not the nutrition. Try Huel today for complete nutrition, bottled nutrition. Thank you, Huel. Thomas Fidone from my Nebraska Cornhuskers. He was taken with the Giants in the 7th round with the 219th pick. He is 23 and a half years old. Length and frame and athleticism is where it kind of comes down with me with Fidone. He has, listen to this. I remember this off my head. I didn't even write this down. Out of all tight ends since 1987, here we go, talking about RAS scores out of 7th round tight ends. 69th all time. How do you like that? Out of all tight ends since 1987, nice. 69th. Nice is right. So length, frame, athleticism is where it really is where Fidone, I feel, stands out. He had 36 catches this past year, 373 touchdowns. No touchdowns this year. Only one drop in I think he had 42 or 43 targets. The year before, he had 25 receptions, 260 yards, 4 touchdowns. Important to note, he did have an ACL injury that he missed, I think, like 2 seasons for.
It derailed his college career.
It really did. It really did. But he came back in 2023, 2024 for my Nebraska Cornhuskers. Dylan Raiola was throwing him the ball this year. Really nice catch radius, frame. I mean, people have written that he's kind of stiff after the catch. I see some nice movement. I think he could be pretty decent after the catch. This is now couple drafts in a row where Joe Schoen likes his tight ends with the high RAS score. So that's Thomas Fidone. Length of frame, athleticism, blocking. I think he's better as a move blocker. Inline blocking, I think he's willing.
Right.
And I think him being, him having the weight of 243 pounds, I think if you're going to be a good inline blocker, I think we got to get that up to closer to 250 or even the mid 250s. But I think as a move blocker, and kind of just think of the Isaiah Likely role. I think the Ravens have utilized him perfectly as the years have gone on. Likely is way more athletic, obviously, but I'm just thinking in terms of a role. There's even a clip of him this past year against Talik Williams where he's moving at the snap and he meets Talik Williams right in the A gap or the B gap and stops him. Nebraska running back goes running by for a nice positive gain. So in line, I think he's willing, and I think there's work to be had. But as a move blocker, I think you can kind of use him, or even an H-back. I think that's where you can kind of use him well.
Yeah, with the 7th round pick, I think you're sort of looking at a lot of the physical traits, and then I think there's some talent. I mean, he was the second or the first heavily recruited out of high school.
It was the same class as Brock Bowers, right?
Correct. And I think he was first, I think, ahead of Brock Bowers. So clearly some talent coming out. The injury, the ACL injury is what kind of slowed him down. But in terms of pass catching, kind of a little bit like Greg Dulcich, right? The guy that they claimed off waivers from the Broncos, the guy that was drafted pretty high. Love his frame. I think he's a lean guy that probably needs to add on a few pounds. But the inline run blocking experience, because I think Nebraska ran a lot of that, where he ran a lot of plays where he had to do the inline blocking. I think he can definitely showcase that. And then I want to see is there untapped potential for him to develop into a pass catching threat. I think given his speed, his ability to go get the ball, the size, I think he's 6'5", 6'6". Injuries have limited his development. And then this past year, I think you talked about his numbers. So I'm excited to see if he can develop into a role that I think the Giants are sort of looking for. But with him and Theo, I sort of wonder, are they – obviously Theo's – the tight end position for me with the Giants is still a big unknown. I don't know for the second straight year. It might be their weakest point of their team because I don't know who is their tight end one? Who is going to be the guy? Theo, we think, but there's still a lot that Theo has to show. But adding a guy like Fidone, right? Did I say it correctly?
Yeah, I mean, I heard people say Fidone, but then I heard I watched Nebraska broadcasts and they're saying Fidone. So I'm going to go with how the broadcasts prepare for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I hope the broadcasts have it right.
I hope so, but I think a rotational piece, hoping he can develop into something in the future. I think the injuries really hindered what he could develop in college, but excited to see. I mean, these 7th round picks, you bet on traits, you bet on talent, and I think that Fidone certainly has those.
Yeah, arm length in the 88th percentile, his wingspan 93rd percentile, hand size 95th percentile, his 10-yard split was 76th percentile, long speed 55th percentile, so little above average. But the shuttle, 3-cone, and vertical were all above the 70th percentile, and his broad jump was the 93rd percentile. So I think he can be like an explosive-ish player. Bet on traits. I like it. Get stronger, get bigger. would be my main ask. But try don't lose that. Try not to lose that athleticism at the same time. Add good weight. And maybe we got something here. But he's going to be a Hall of Famer since he's from my Nebraska Cornhuskers.
There you go.
Now, I mean, we want to talk about the second Hall of Famer that we've taken in this draft class, Weis. It is Korie Black, 6 foot, 192 pounds, has arms that are very, very long. I believe his arms are over 32 inches. He is from Oklahoma State. I think he has a lot of things to clean up, but you like the traits. He has ball production. I believe 12 passes defensed, a couple interceptions. So I like Korie Black out of Oklahoma State. He's going to be a Hall of Famer, Weis.
He is, yeah. I think we're going to see that pretty early on. I'm officially nominating Korie Black as the one guy that might have a great training camp, and we'll look at him and be like, Korie Black needs to play more. He's really, really good. You know, we have those players that always come around during training camp, right? Whether it's that contested catch wide receiver that has a nice play during training camp or in the preseason, I think Korie Black's going to be that. But again, with these 7th round picks, Justin, you're looking at traits, you're looking at college production, you're looking at your scouting department, you're looking at can he fit into a role. These 7th round picks are just darts thrown at a wall. It's kind of like a glorified UDFA at this point. So you mentioned his size. I had some good production at Oklahoma State too. So guy you're going to bring in, see if he can work his way in onto the 53 and then go from there.
Lance Zierlein wrote that he was a productive gunner in 2021.
Special teams, I forgot to mention that these late round picks.
In 2021, the fact that Lance Zierlein has that note is crazy.
Yeah.
2021 was a long time ago.
Correct.
Ball production, length, traits. I think the long. This was straight. My other computer died, so I had it pulled up. His 10-yard split, I think, was in the 90th percentile. Or no, other way around. Shit. Which one was it? Shit. His 10-yard split is either awful or elite, and his 40-yard speed is terrible or elite. And I've never seen something so like drastic different. And I'm very mad my other computer died.
His 10-yard split was 1.58. His 40-yard dash, he ran a 4.35.
Oh, I think. Oh, then the 10-yard split is horrible, and the 40-yard dash is awesome.
Right. And
isn't that incredible?
His wingspan is 77.5, vertical jump 39, broad jump 9.9, 3-cone 701. 6 foot 192, played 5 years.
3-year starter.
3-year starter. Started 38 of 50 games for the Oklahoma State Cowboys. 13 games in 2024, but missed their bowl game due to injury. He allowed a low of 55.4% catch rate in 2024 with 9 passes defended and 3 interceptions. Throughout his collegiate career, he allowed just a 53% catch rate with 19 passes defended and 4 interceptions. So last year was clearly a big year for him in terms of production.
Sold.
Yep. It was at the East-West Shrine Bowl, which I think the Giants had coaches there, right?
Yes, it was Shane Bone was the head coach of one of the teams.
There you go. Top 30 visits as well. By the way, can I say one thing about these top 30 visits? The Giants got to do a better job of not making it obvious that the top.
Oh my God!
Visits.
Yeah, well, every year for the last since the first draft class, since 2022, where we all learned, it's like, okay, well, the Giants kind of drafted everybody that they had a top 30 visit with.
Correct. Yes.
So from there, we have been awesome at forecasting who they're going to draft, and it's basically just have a write up on everybody they did a 30 visit with.
Yeah, I mean, Abdul Carter 30 visit. Jaxson Dart was not a 30 visit, but Darius Alexander 30 visit.
Yep. The only one that wasn't was Fidone.
And Jaxson Dart.
But I'm pretty sure, and Jaxson Dart. They didn't have a 30 visit with Jaxson Dart?
I don't think so. They did not have a 30. I have to look at that, but I don't think he was one of the quarterbacks that I think they spent a lot of time with him. But I don't think he was a 30 visit.
But Fidone I think it was Giants tight end coach Tim Kelly that actually led the workout at the Nebraska Pro Day. So there you go.
There you go. Yep.
There you go.
That is the Giants.
I'm looking this up. I'm looking this up right now. I know you were about to just do a really nice outro.
I wasn't. I was getting ready for you to ask me this question about something.
Are the New York Football Giants a better team than they were a couple days ago? Is that the question you wanted me to ask?
No. I thought you were going to put me on the spot on something else and ask me to explain.
Oh, yes. I don't care that we need to talk about it.
I've gotten a lot of texts about that. I actually had a couple of phone calls, too, from friends like, hey, what happened?
Let's see. Jaxson Dart. I think you're right. He did not have a formal 30 visit.
No, but I think Schefter pointed it out like a day before the draft that, hey, just want to let everyone know the Giants spent a lot of time with Jaxson Dart.
He was out at the Senior Bowl too. But I mean, you only get like 15 minutes.
Yeah,
with everybody. But okay, we'll end off with this. Shedeur Sanders, Weis.
Yeah,
what happened?
Going from the number 3 pick to being the number 3 quarterback on the Cleveland, or the second quarterback the Cleveland Browns took in the draft in the 5th round. I don't know what happened. Well, I think I know what happened, but I think Shedeur Sanders. First of all, I didn't know he didn't have an agent. Deion's running his whole thing. I think Shedeur Sanders read some really bad information about his draft position. He didn't play an All-Star game, Justin. He didn't work out at the combine.
Nope.
He didn't take any visits, I think, outside of the top 5, except Pittsburgh, which was late in the draft process. He carried himself as a guy that he was told was going to be taken in the top 10 at the very least. And he wasn't even he was the 5th quarterback taken. There's a lot to it. I mean, the Deion effect, the film probably wasn't as good as people thought it was, certainly not as good as I thought it was going to be. And then the meetings, man, some of the stuff coming out, wearing headphones in the meetings, the answers to the questions. Again, I will say this, though, as someone who is a Shedeur fan, ESPN and Mel Kiper Jr. specifically straight up embarrassed themselves this past weekend. First of all, they ran the entire draft as a Shedeur Sanders campaign. Every single quarterback every single team that could have taken Shedeur Sanders that didn't take him, the player that they took wasn't even talked about.
It made me feel bad for, like, especially if especially the day 2 and day 3 prospects that are watching from home. They're watching the broadcast and they're waiting. Those families are waiting for their moment. Their moment to be talked about, and they're not. Odds are, ESPN and NFL, they're not going to shit on the prospect. Oh, this guy's got upside. So the fact that their moment was kind of taken away from them is kind of that's kind of shitty. And also, it's a 17-hour weekend, and we're talking about one player for the majority of it.
Mel Kiper was having a mental breakdown after every time the Browns passed on him. You know what the most eye-popping thing about this whole weekend with Shedeur was? And this is what made me kind of second guess. Maybe I don't have the right opinion, or maybe I'm overrating what I'm seeing. Tom Brady, Shedeur Sanders' mentor. I don't think there's anyone that's, from a team perspective, that's associated with the team. There's nobody that's closer to Shedeur Sanders than Tom Brady, who basically is running the show with the Raiders.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Raiders, yeah.
And he passed on them 3 times in the 3rd round, 5 times through day 2, and didn't take him. If Tom Brady wanted Shedeur Sanders to be a Raider, they would have taken him at 6. The fact that they passed on him 5 times through the first 2 days, that spoke volume to me more than anything else that happened throughout that weekend. So, I don't know. We'll see. Cleveland, I mean, I think he'll play pretty early on. I have a theory that Cleveland took him because the value was too great. They probably don't believe in him. They're going to throw him out there to see if
why did they take Dylan Gabriel too?
Yeah. They're going to – I believe they'll throw Shedeur out there at some point in the season and see if his value can rise to a certain level where they can get back more than the 5th round pick that they took him on. So
to trade him?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think they drafted Shedeur Sanders because they think he can evolve into some starting caliber quarterback.
I mean, GM and coach certainly didn't look thrilled, and I don't even know how much longer they have left anyway. Though,
Yeah,
I think Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski are I mean, and they may have different communications with ownership,
yeah,
but I think they're sticking around until they get out of the Deshaun Watson contract, and
right.
then they're going to get fired.
Well, the trade that they made to acquire more draft capital signals they're punting on this season.
Oh yeah,
Punting, they're punting on the season. They have 4 quarterbacks in there. I would not be surprised if all 4 play at some point during the season, including Dylan Gabriel. And I think Shador will play. And I don't think Shador was drafted there because I think they have some plan for Shador. They think he can develop into something. It's like, hey, this guy was a guy that a lot of people thought was going to go in the first 2 rounds or 3 rounds, whatever. We got him in the 5th. We're not playing for anything in 2025. Let's throw him out there. Maybe he plays well enough that a team is desperate and says, hey, we'll give you something for him. I think that's what this is all about with the Browns. And for Shador, I think it's a big, I don't know if it's a wake-up call more than it's like I don't even know how to describe it. It was one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen. But
well, I mean, Weis, let me ask you this, because I mean, you came on the show and we talked about Shador, and it was, he's a program changer, and at
least I thought he was.
This is what I think, and this is some things that I had in my head rolling around anyway. And I said this. I challenged Abdul Carter to do this, and this is what I think about Shador. I think Shador likes being a football player. I think this process showed teams that he may not love football. I don't want to say doesn't. I don't know him. I don't know the guy. I wasn't in those meetings. I wasn't in those interviews. And it's something that Jay Glazer put out too. I'm not going to be able to find the tweet because we're live on a podcast. But something that Jay Glazer put out, and then Research Rick, our guy, shared it. Jay Glazer put out right before the draft, there are going to be certain players, and I don't know if this was a Shador tweet, or I don't know if it wasn't. There are going to be certain players that are going to fall in this draft, and then also other players that are going to rise in this draft, because in the era of NIL, where some people could be playing football because they know that they're good at it, and they also know that they can get paid a lot in college, a fucking lot in college, to be the man, right? And then you come to the NFL, and then you just expect things, I'm going to get paid and things are going to be easy and shit like that. So I think guys that really love football, and I think teams can maybe see that certain guys went up and then certain guys went down. And that's my theory on this.
And I go back to this and we'll wrap up. I don't want to do a whole conversation about Shador, but
it's historic. This was historic what happened this week.
The information that was given to Shador Sanders and his dad was so wrong. It was so just, it was almost a delusional, information that you can give somebody, because the decision making that was done by Shador based on that information, and then you saw what happened. I think Shador going into the NFL, if he wants to have an NFL career, he has to be Shador Sanders, not Deion Sanders' son, Shador Sanders. You have to be your own man. I think you got to go get an agent. You got to really, really, really decide, like you say, do you want to play football or do you want to be a football player?
Correct.
And I think those are the things that he has to figure out, because I do think he can have a long NFL career. He just has to accept that maybe what he thinks he is not what teams think he is at the moment. Doesn't mean he can't be that, but he's not there yet. And so I'll be rooting for him. I'll always be a fan with Shador, but we'll see what happens. With that said, I got to go with my guy, Jaxson Dart, man. Jaxson Dart.
Root for the guys in blue.
Got to.
Root for the guys in blue. Thanks for listening. Draft is always a grind. Draft is always a lot of work. It's a stressful month. I would say out of all months on the calendar, April leading into May is, well, I mean, the draft is done early this year. Usually it bleeds into May. The draft is always the most stressful one because you want to get it right. It was particularly stressful this year for a multitude of reasons. So I appreciate everybody being with us.
Also, Green Bay sucked. Please stop putting the draft in these cities. I mean, there was not 200,000 people in Green Bay like they said. I don't even think 200,000 people live in Green Bay. First of all, put the
I don't
shit
think they
back.
could fit that many. I mean, you saw the space.
Yeah,
They
it
couldn't
was.
fit 200,000 people there. They
No,
were
it wasn't.
bleeding into the stadium night one.
Yes, please put it back in New York. Okay, Radio City Music.
Oh,
Hall's
they
too
never
small.
will. It's you know how much money they make going to cities.
Pittsburgh's going to be nice next year. I'll tell you
Put
that.
it in
Pittsburgh's
Philly
gonna-
every year. I know. We're
No.
hey, we hate Philly. Philly was awesome the year that it was there. It was electric.
Has it been in Los Angeles yet? I feel like that'll be fun too.
I don't. But is SoFi in LA, or is it like saying that the New York Giants play in, or is it like the Giants play?
It is. It's right next to the airport.
Okay.
But yeah, just stop. Green Bay, come on, please. No, thank you.
I thought it was unique.
It was cold. Ugh.
It rained day 2.
None of the prospects went. It reminded me of the COVID draft. Remember the COVID draft where Roger Goodell announced the picks?
Oh yeah,
basement?
yeah.
It reminded me that because nobody was there. Nobody was there to shake his hand outside of like maybe 10 prospects.
Well, it was a weird draft, as they say. All right, that's gonna do it. I'll see you when I see you. Thank you, Weis, NYG Daily. Are you going to be recording NYG Weekly?
Maybe we'll see. I don't know.
If NYG Weekly drops, you got to listen to NYG Weekly. Thank you to Weis, NYG Daily. Appreciate everybody. We'll see you soon. Go Giants. Peace.